This show is made possible by Workplace Assured. Yep, we've got a new sponsor. What is Workplace Assured? Great question. It's like having a really smart friend you can ring when you've got a curly business question, which means, as a business owner, you can worry less about issues around wrong pay rates, leave entitlements, unfair dismissal, and focus on the big stuff, like what you'll say in your next Facebook post. Try Workplace Assured out now by calling 1300 575 394. And we're also made possible thanks to the very good folk at Key Person of Influence, a 40-week accelerator program designed to make you more visible, more valuable, and more connected in your industry. You can grab a free hard copy of their New York Times bestseller over at keypersonofinfluence.com/Timbo. Now, if you've listened to this show long enough, you'll know that I fundamentally believe there has never been a better time to market a small business. Why? Because the tools and resources we, us small business owners, have at our disposal are absolutely amazing. They enable us to do things that 5 or 10 years ago were just way too expensive. One of those resources is crowdsourcing. And who better to explain how it works than Designcrowd founder Alec Lynch.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. That would be the Small Business Big Marketing Show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner and you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. It's exactly what we do around here. It's exactly what we've been doing for the last 7 years. Thanks for returning. If it's your second or 100th or 200th time around, if it's your first time around, welcome. You're in for a good ride. Hey, big show today. Alec Lynch, the founder of the world's #1 custom design marketplace, joins us to explain how we can all use crowdsourcing in all its different forms to help grow our business. I share another low-cost marketing idea in that wonderful segment that everyone's loving called What Do You Got to Lose? I'll give you a hint. Today's idea, it's really old school. Yeah, really old school. But boy, oh boy, will it get your customers standing up and paying attention. And we go back into the SBBM, that would be Small Business Big Marketing Vault, revisiting a past episode in which I caught up with this fellow Ben, who'd created a YouTube video about how to tie a tie. He's had 29 million views, but he's been struggling to convert them into sales. So we revisit a portion of that episode. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Coming up, I'll share an idea with you that can only lead to your customers absolutely loving you. Plus, I'll give you some more insights into the genius that is Workplace Assured. But first, let's meet Alec Lynch. He's the co-founder. Actually, he's the founder. He's the head honcho. He's the numero uno of Designcrowd, which is the world's #1 design marketplace. And he used to sponsor the show, so he's an old-time friend of the show. Now, for those of you who are unaware of what Designcrowd is, put simply, it's an online marketplace where graphic designers from all around the world compete to give you designs you love. Now, here's the thing. Alec is not here to sell you on the benefits of Designcrowd. We've done that. But he is here to explain the concept and power of crowdsourcing and how you can use it to achieve things in your business that previously you might have thought were just too expensive. Things like design, voiceovers, photography, copywriting, all those things that, we really want to do in our small businesses, but we think, oh, geez, going to cost me a lot of money. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. On top of that, Alec also shares where the idea from Designcrowd came from, because it's got an interesting story, how he got it to market, some of the marketing tactics he's used to grow it, including a pretty clever guerrilla marketing idea. I started off by asking Alex about the $60,000 credit card debt he'd managed to run up in the early days of Designcrowd.
Yeah, that's basically right. So in 2007, I had the idea for Designcrowd and quit a job that I had in strategy consulting and moved back home to live the family home and work on the business full time. And at that point, I had an idea for Designcrowd. I had $10,000 in savings and I had 3 credit cards and a laptop.
Okay, stop there. Did you think that $10,000 was going to be enough, or were you looking at those 3 credit cards glowingly?
No, I was pretty naive. I was very young. I was 23. To be fair, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about raising capital. I thought the credit cards might come in handy.
Did you know anything about design?
Yeah, I did, but not as a designer. So I had an interest in design and was an amateur designer. I'd been building websites and software since I was in high school, from the age of 14 or 15. And I studied programming and business at university. Mm-hmm. And while I was working in strategy consulting, I still had an interest in creativity and design. I also had an interest in entrepreneurship. And I suppose having that interest in design meant that I felt I could see some challenges and also some opportunities in the design industry from the outside, even though I wasn't a designer.
What was the main challenge? For me, if it was me back then, I'd gone, Jesus, design's expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, there were challenges in 2 buckets. One set of challenges are for businesses and small businesses, which are the ones, one of which is the challenge you're observing there. And then there are also challenges for designers. And Designcrowd aims to kind of address both those sets of challenges. For businesses, just quickly, I perceived 3 challenges. 1, expensive to get design. Mm-hmm. B, slow. Yeah. And then thirdly, a lot of uncertainty around the creative process and what you would get back, and essentially risk. And actually, one of the things I saw in 2007 was the London Olympics logo was released. So the 2012 logo, and it was revealed it cost £400,000 to make.
Yeah, isn't it great?
To make, and no one liked it. It was panned widely by public and the press and even designers. And I saw that and I thought to myself, wow, imagine if instead of paying an agency $500,000, they'd offered £100,000 or £50,000 and run a global open design competition.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew intuitively that there were thousands of talented designers in Australia and around the world that were qualified or not qualified, but very talented and keen for needing an opportunity and struggling to break into the design industry. I knew that they would have saved money if they took that approach, and I felt they would have got thousands of entries and a better result overall.
How many in 2007, Alec? How many other crowdsourcing websites existed around design?
There weren't any that were really dedicated. There was. I did a bunch of research before launching Designcrowd. I looked a lot at sort of the incumbents, offline options for businesses, agencies, the online players at the time. The leading one was called LogoWorks, which was a pretty simple offering. It was sort of pay $200 or $300, get 1 designer, pay $500, $600, get 3 or 4 designers, etc. And
I bet they use clip art and Comic Sans.
Yeah, it wasn't a great experience really, right. But it was the leading offering at the time, and they were going quite well.
Are you saying Designcrowd? It was the first of the kind of big guys? Was 99 Designs around at that point in time? Were any other the big names out there?
Right. So 99 Designs hadn't launched in 2007. that was spun out of a
forum.
A forum called SitePoint. Now, SitePoint existed at that point, but I personally wasn't aware of that sort of a web.
So, mate, you're ahead of your time. 23-year-old bloke, not a designer, saw an opportunity for crowdsourcing too, because crowdsourcing back then, I would argue even now, is still in its it's not early days, but it hasn't been fully embraced by certainly businesses in Australia. So you had a bit of a job to do, didn't you? Educational kind of job to tell people about this way of actually getting work done called crowdsourcing using the internet, where it was relatively inexpensive. And I imagine there'd be a whole lot of people thinking, yeah, right, good luck with that.
Right, yeah. So it's interesting you say that. I mean, the term crowdsourcing was probably coined, I think it was in 2006, might have been in 2008. The crowdsourcing is a way of getting creative work done has essentially existed for decades, even before the internet. So Toyota's logo, their current logo, was crowdsourced through a global competition. I think it's still...
Was it really?
Yeah, I think it's still the largest single logo crowdsourcing competition ever held. They received tens of thousands of entries. The Sydney Opera House was designed via a global competition. So there's sort of countless examples of creativity, whether it's in design or even examples of innovation that were have been created even pre-internet, essentially through the creativity of the crowd or kind of a crowdsourced contest. But you're right. In 2007, the concept of crowdsourcing was very new. When I started Designcrowd, I didn't know about crowdsourcing. So the business was originally called Design Bay. So the concept was sort of eBay for design.
Yeah.
I just landed on a particular process, and I actually called it an open brief. So you post a brief and it's open to everyone. But with, I guess, the spread of crowdsourcing since then, the coining of that term, we sort of would squarely fit under that umbrella. We're a design crowdsourcing site, so we kind of shifted our branding after a couple of years to be Designcrowd. And yeah, especially then, but even so now, part of the challenge / opportunity for our business is simply educating the world, designers and customers, that crowdsourcing exists, is a new form of outsourcing. It's outsourcing on steroids, if you will, and it's a great way to get your graphic, logo, or web design completed, especially if you're a small business.
Before I want to talk more about crowdsourcing beyond design and how small business owners that are listening can embrace an incredible way of getting a lot done without spending a fortune, because that's one of the premises of this show. But first, I just want to talk more about getting Designcrowd to market. Clearly, you hit on something. Was there a moment when, clearly before you hit a tipping point of going, hey, this is going to work, you ran up 60 grand of debt on your credit card. So tell us about that point, Alec, when you got the wobbles and thought, oh, geez, hang on, I think I'd just better get back into my bedroom and go back to a proper job.
Yeah, so basically the first 2 years of the business were probably the most challenging for me personally. And I guess there was a lot more uncertainty over whether the model and the venture would work. And that's the period where I basically went into some personal debt. So I think of that period as kind of the bootstrapped phase for Designcrowd. It was just me and, the laptop, running it from trying to launch and run the business from, my mum's house with my mum and her cat in the background.
Were you shitting yourself, or were you on fire?
Probably for the first 6 months, I was on fire. I spent that 10 grand, pretty quickly, just kind of setting up the website, getting it hosted. My co-founder, Adam, who wasn't working in the business full time at that point, but I paid him to build the prototype, and then I built that out myself. Spent some money to crowdsource our own logo, and that helped us get our initial designers. But pretty soon after launching, even before I got my first customer, I probably started using credit cards to help pay for hosting and then eventually advertising. And probably about 1 year after launch, I'd maxed out those 3 credit cards, and I'd maxed them out to a total of about 30 grand. I knew, I still felt that the idea was a really good one. In that first financial year, so probably started working on the business in September 2007, launched it in January 2008, and then 6 months of operation. It took like a couple of months to make my first sale, and I made that sale in person actually. It was difficult to make it online. It's a lovely model now where we have 500,000 designers and 35 million, 40 million of projects through the platform that people can log in and see examples. But back then, if you go to the website, there was nothing there. It was 100 designers. There was a contest for our own logo, and then I put up a couple of just for fun contests. But to get our first customer, I had to convince the person in person. Like I had a meeting with the guy and managed to convince him to try it out, and it went well. And shortly after that, I found a way to make sales online, and particularly through kind of initially search engine marketing and SEO, which was sort of our bread and butter for the first 4 years of the business.
Yeah, well, they were the golden years of SEO.
Right. Going back to your question, I sort of when I was 30 grand in debt on credit cards, I basically doubled down and took 30 grand of loans from friends and family to keep funding the business. And probably towards the back end of that first 2 years, certainly some periods where I questioned if I was going down the right path.
When you do have those moments, how do you work through them? Because, I speak to a lot of people, and I'm always fascinated about the birth of a business. And generally speaking, there are naysayers. That won't work. You had a good job. You could do better elsewhere. Someone else is doing that. When you have those moments of uncertainty, can you remember what you did to kind of get through them?
Yeah. So, I can remember some family members saying to me, oh, well, maybe you should go back to strategy consulting. Maybe you should go do an MBA. That company was going to sponsor you to do that. Yeah. But then I had other friends and family who were the opposite, and you're saying things like, you can't turn back now, you've come too far, it's a great idea, it's going to work. So I'd say one would be like support.
So can I ask those people, those family members that were positive, were they people that you respected anyway, or were you just wanting to listen to the positive people in your life? Yeah,
I certainly respected everyone that was giving me advice, but it was also about focusing on that. I think to an extent, reflecting on it, it would have been understandable given where it was at if I had thrown in the towel and tried to do something else. But there was probably a part of me that just didn't want to accept defeat, and I was probably stubborn. I was certainly persistent. And even when I didn't feel like it, I kind of kept persisting with the idea. There was another part of that process for me, which was to sit down and invest energy into why is this going to work, and thinking about, here are the customers that have been successful, here are the problems with the market, here are the areas I've made progress in.
Nice.
Yeah. And,
did you actively do that? Was that something you do each week? Yeah, right.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things in that first 2 years for me personally was the psychological side, where I'd coming from university and then strategy consulting, as a young person, you're constantly getting feedback. And in a lot of cases, it was kind of positive feedback. So in university, you're going through exams, you're constantly getting feedback from lecturers and marks. And I did well at university. I got the university medal, and that was a great feeling, sense of achievement. You go into strategy consulting, you've got 6-month reviews, end of job reviews, annual reviews. So you're constantly getting feedback. And then when you launch your own business 2 years by yourself with your mum and your cat and her cat.
That university medal didn't mean anything then.
Yeah, exactly. But also you don't have a boss. No one's giving you feedback. No one's telling you. I didn't have investors that, at that stage there weren't really any, there was no fish burners. There were no real co-working spaces or options certainly that I was aware of in Sydney. None of my friends were into startups, so it was sort of just flying blind. And at a certain point, I realized I needed to I was my own boss, but I also needed to be kind of my own coach. And so there were periods where at the end of every day, I would sit down and be like, okay, what are 6 good things that you did today? And what were 6 things that you could do better tomorrow? So taking time to kind of reflect on what was going well with the business overall, or what was good about.
Mate, that was very forward thinking, because I must say, and we talk a lot about this inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum. In fact, we have a section around wins. I don't think as small business owners we stop and celebrate the wins anywhere near enough. The little wins, not just the big wins, but I got up this morning, got to work, and cleared my inbox. That's not going to happen. But we just don't celebrate those wins enough.
Right. Well, I think acknowledging wins, as you put it, and things like that, is an important aspect of being positive and resilient. And I do think that's important in business, in life, but particularly in the first 2 years of 1 or 2 years of starting a business, where there's a high chance of the business and the venture not working out. Everyone that's going down that path is accepting kind of the risk reward profile that comes with that. But if you can push through that, it can be certainly really rewarding. And that was definitely the case for myself and Designcrowd.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, mate, good on you for getting it. So tell us then about the moment where you've pushed through all that, and then you've either looked yourself in the mirror, or maybe you had a partner or two at this stage where things have started to look up.
Yeah, well, it was towards the back end of that 2-year period. I had one customer I can remember from Switzerland who'd used the service, and he contacted me through the contact page and said, introduced himself and said, "Hi, I'm Stefan, and I've used your service. I love it, and I'm an angel investor, and I'd love to invest in your business."
Hello, Stefan.
So I set up a Skype call with Stefan, and he introduced me to the concept of angel investing. So this would have been in late 2008, and he said to me, "Alec, what would you do if I invested 200,000 euros into the business? What would you do with that money?" And I went away and thought about that, and I realized that capital was exactly what the business needed. I felt a good idea. I was running out of money. I was in debt, and this would be a way to help promote the business globally, which is I had attempted from day one to launch Designcrowd as a global business, and 60 grand spread across hosting and marketing, etc., is basically nothing. Yeah, exactly. So I knew that's what the business needed, but I concluded that it would work a lot better for me, and it would make more sense if I found local investors. So at that point, I put together a new business plan that involved raising capital and started looking for angel investors in Australia. And I used different...
What is an angel investor?
Yeah, so angel investor is typically a high net worth individual that invests in businesses.
Okay, I'll Google that one. What's the difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist or an investor? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose it relates to the stage of investment, the size of check that they typically write. So I guess often in businesses, particularly tech businesses, so the sort of business that Designcrowd is, there'll be sort of different stages of funding, and it's not uncommon to fund the business yourself as much as you can with savings and credit cards. And then this was not known to me, but the path that I took where you fund it yourself and then you fund it with friends and family is pretty common. And then typically after that, you might raise angel capital. And depending on what country you're in, a typical angel round of investment will vary. In Australia, or in our case, we raised $300,000 from 4 different angels. In the US, that would be considered a very small seed or angel round. An angel round can be over $1 million in the US, and you now have syndicates of angels, so group of angel investors. And an angel will typically, I would say, write a check between $50,000 and a few $100,000 in the US. And sometimes in Australia, there are super angels, if you will, that might write a check of $1 million.
I love a super angel. So, Alec, let's talk about the marketing, and I want to talk about this whole concept of crowdsourcing. How do you go about getting users to Designcrowd? Because I would have thought getting designers is pretty easy. You've got 555,000 freelance designers online, I can see right now. But how do you get users? SEO, Facebook ads, you've sponsored this podcast previously. What do you do? What's the number one thing you do?
Yeah, so I would say compared to the first couple of years, there are now probably a dozen ways we get customers today. So, our search was our bread and butter and our main way to get customers initially. But as we've grown, we've raised capital. Since that angel round, we've now raised $12 million in venture capital.
Yep.
So that's allowed us to grow our team. We now have a team of over 45 staff in Australia, the Philippines, and the US. We also have bigger marketing budgets and different channels now. Today, search would still be our single largest source of acquiring customers. Yeah, particularly, that includes paid search, so SEM, Google AdWords, and so on, and still SEO. But
what's the just go a bit deeper into that SEO? So SEM's obvious. I imagine a cost per click wouldn't be cheap, but then SEO, how do you rank organically for something so competitive as getting a logo designed or, brochure designed?
Well, it's not easy on all of those terms, and the SEO landscape has in the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not easy to do things to influence the rankings. However, our business model where a customer comes along, posts a brief saying, I need a logo for a cafe, and then designers from around the world upload 100 different designs, cafe logo designs, all different types. By default, the customer's request and those designs are public on the site. Now, customers and designers, they can make them private if they want to, and that's fine. But by default, they're public. So that means they can be indexed by Google. And this is once a project completes, etc. And as a result, the website generates a large amount of what we would call UGC, or user-generated content, which Google loves. So we have over 10 million uploaded designs on Designcrowd, which Google can index. And as a result, Google concludes that, Designcrowd has a lot of relevant content related to logo design or brochure design or website design. So I think that content, which relates both to the written content in briefs, to those designs that have been uploaded to designer portfolios from around the world, is just a huge volume of long tail content that naturally gets generated by the site, and it creates a little bit of a viral loop. So
yeah, right.
People submit a design or submit a request, creates designer portfolios, designers sign up, and it just creates more content that can help acquire new customers and designers. So that's helpful.
You've also embarked on some guerrilla marketing, I understand, which many businesses don't.
We've had a lot of fun, actually, with guerrilla marketing and a lot of success with that. And PR, we've run some campaigns, I think, that have won some awards, actually, which the team's very proud of. Probably the basic, in a nutshell, the sort of contests we run, or guerrilla campaigns, rather, we actually use our own platform to generate creative ideas, sometimes memes, if you will, on pop culture or interesting topics. So the US election was endless fodder for us. And as our politicians and...
So what's an example of a guerrilla marketing campaign you've done?
Yeah, probably the most popular one that I don't love the term viral, but I think it's...
Why?
Be fair to say
what's wrong with viral?
Well, I think it can be a bit of a moonshot. People can get hung up on achieving it, and we didn't really set out to make things go viral. We set out, in this part of our marketing, to just have a little bit of fun, to offer some money for our designers to work on a cool project and just see what happens, really. So it probably constitutes 1% of our marketing budget each month, and most of the time nothing happens, but it is just fun. But occasionally, and this is probably the best example, is it kind of hits the nail on the head and spreads like wildfire. So probably the most popular one would be a contest we ran last year, I think, which was politicians. We wanted our designers to Photoshop famous world politicians with man buns. So particularly they were male politicians like Obama or Putin, and our designers took photos of those politicians and Photoshopped, hipster man bun haircuts onto these politicians. And it's probably a few hundred entries. It probably cost us $300 or $400. I can't remember the exact details, but it just got picked up everywhere. I think it made a TV show in the US.
Fantastic.
Scores of publications like New York Post, Vanity Fair. There's just this amazing spread of publications that we normally would not get coverage in. We've got loads of traffic, backlinks, etc. So just a really interesting and fun campaign. But what's nice about it is it also kind of helped demonstrate the creativity of the crowd and what's the sort of range of creativity that's possible on Designcrowd.
Would it be possible for a small business owner listening to embrace that as well? Because, all you've done as the owner of Designcrowd have utilised the design pool, the pool of designers, correct, with a brief to say, hey, listen, go and make a mix of a politician and a hipster and show us what that looks like. And then you start sharing those on social media. I'm guessing that's what you've done, correct?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay, so could a small business owner do that as well?
Yeah, I think they could. Yeah, it's probably, there are lots of different uses of crowdsourcing for a small business owner. I wouldn't necessarily put that at the top of the list from a most functional perspective, but certainly, that's definitely a way you can use crowdsourcing and the creativity of the crowd, and that's a way that we've had some success ourselves. Yeah.
So a whole lot of business owners listening to this, Alec, they can use Designcrowd to get pretty much anything, any of their marketing touch points design. We've talked a lot about that on the show previously. What are other ways can business owners utilise this concept of crowdsourcing beyond design? Yeah,
well, I think crowdsourcing is a really good way for business owners to outsource creativity in general. So design is one form of creativity, but others include photography, video, copywriting, naming your business. There's a great website that offers competition crowdsourcing like Designcrowd for coming up with domains and naming your website. There are a number of those websites. The one that I quite like is called namestation.com, which is a great option. With photography, you've obviously got a lot of stock photography marketplaces that exist. You've got Shutterstock, iStock, PhotoJune, owned by Envato. If you want to launch a WordPress website, you could get a custom WordPress design from Designcrowd, or you could get a template, a theme pre-made from ThemeForest. So I think broadly, I would say there's this bucket of crowdsourcing creativity. Like if you need voice acting, you can crowdsource it on Voice 123. If you need photos, you can get it from Shutterstock.com.
Yeah, right.
You know, there's you think of something creative that you might need, and there's basically now a crowdsourcing option. I think in addition to crowdsourcing, maybe the other bucket, which I strictly wouldn't call this crowdsourcing, and because it has crowd in the name, it kind of gets linked in to that. But I think crowdfunding is an incredibly powerful tool for
amazing
businesses. Yeah.
Just sort of different, but still utilising the power of the crowd, right?
Exactly.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but whilst it is an amazing idea, the concept of crowdsourcing, to me, the magic is getting the brief right. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that would be at the top of my list. So I think there are three key things to getting the most out of crowdsourcing creativity, whether that's crowdsourcing design on Designcrowd or crowdsourcing a voice actor on voice crowdsourcing website. And for me, the first one is definitely the brief. So whether you're working with a designer online or offline, getting your requirements and your brief right is really important. So that'd be at the top of the list. I think the second one probably relates to the amount of money that you're offering, and getting that right depending on the complexity of your project. And my general guidance there is you kind of don't want to scrimp and scrape when it comes to offering money for creativity.
What I see a lot of people do in this space is kind of think, I'm just going to get the most amazing work done for $100. And look, every now and then you might, but you get what you pay for applies as much in crowdsourcing as it does anywhere else.
Yeah, I think crowdsourcing and working online, outsourcing online can save money. There's no doubt about that. And as we touched on earlier, one of the challenges with the traditional design model is it's expensive. And I think crowdsourcing definitely helps address that problem. But fundamentally, the crowdsourcing model and Designcrowd's model asks designers to compete on creativity. So you set a fixed price, and then we'll find you the best design in the world for that budget.
Correct.
And the reality is the higher that budget, the more you offer, the more ideas you'll get, the more designers will participate, and the more higher caliber designers you'll receive ideas from. So that's actually quite important.
Getting the brief right, prize money. What's the third thing to get crowdsourcing right?
The third thing is feedback to people that submit ideas to your project. It's refining those ideas. I mean, designers love feedback, whether it's positive or negative. They don't want to have a vacuum and not get any feedback on their ideas. So getting the best possible design is not just about nailing the brief or offering the right amount of money, but also putting effort into communicating with designers and participants in your project, and accepting that whether you're working with one designer in person in a studio or working online with scores of designers through a platform like Designcrowd, you need to communicate with them and refine their ideas and work with them to get the perfect design for you.
There you go. 3 ways of making sure you optimise your crowdsourcing experience. Now, Alec, I love to finish these interviews with 5 quickies, 5 questions completely unrelated to anything we've spoken about. Are you ready?
All right, hit me.
If you could change one thing about your life instantly, what would it be?
I wish I could surf. I live down at Bondi, and I went for a run this morning, and I'm very envious of all the people out there on.
That is
surfboards.
amazing. That is one of my life regrets. It's not too late, but I so wish I could surf. It looks so good. I'm with you on that one. Are you going to do anything about it?
Well, summer's here, and
time is right.
Plenty
for
of
dancing in the
plenty
street.
of surf schools down at Bondi. So I've had some lessons in the past.
Good on
I
you.
might have another crack.
All right. Next question. What's the best book you've ever read?
Oh, probably Lord of the Rings.
Wow, that's heavy. What's something you've never told anyone? Not because it's a secret, just because you've never told anyone.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Put me on the spot.
Awkward silence. I'll just do a little a little song here.
Pass.
It's a tough one.
That's
all right.
very tough.
You can come back to it. What's the first album you ever bought?
Oh, wow. I feel like it would have been a CD, maybe like a Foo Fighters CD.
Yeah, right. Have you seen that Foo Fighters video where the little town in Italy wanted to get them over there, and they put on this amazing outdoor? What's one of their biggest songs? Is it "Learn to Fly" or?
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I haven't seen what you're referring to there. And
it's the most amazing viral video. I'll put a link in the show notes to it. Finally, what was the last time? When was the last time you were embarrassed? Maybe 2 minutes ago when you couldn't answer question 3.
No, I don't feel bad about that, Tim. You ask great questions. You're a great interviewer. So, yeah, I feel no shame about that.
Fair enough.
Last time I was embarrassed. Gee, I can't recall that either.
Not a guy who gets embarrassed easily.
Yeah, no. I haven't had issues with that since kindergarten.
Yeah, right. No sweaty palms. Good on you, mate. Well, listen, well done on Designcrowd. It's a great story and a great service. And, I just think anything that saves small business owners time and money and gets them a result that far exceeds their expectations has got to be a good thing because, as I often say, there are businesses with much deeper pockets and crowdsourcing can give us a competitive advantage. So thanks, buddy, and all the best for the future.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, there you go. Alec Lynch, founder of crowdsourcing site Designcrowd. Now, coming up, I share my top 3 attention grabbers from that fireside chat with Alec. But first, here's a word from 2 businesses that want to help build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Support for this show comes from Workplace Assured. As business owners, we know a lot about whatever it is we sell. But what about when it comes to running the business? All those niggly, unanswered questions we just aren't trained to answer. Questions like, what if one of my employees starts bullying others? Are male staff members entitled to paternity leave? What if an employee gets blind drunk and abusive at the Christmas party? Oh, that old chestnut. And how do I cancel an underperforming supplier's contract? Oh, the pain. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. What if you could focus on building that beautiful business of yours, knowing that the answers to all these questions and more were just a phone call away? Well, that is absolutely possible thanks to Workplace Assured. No more crippling claims or eye-watering legal fees, just solid answers to your most pressing questions. Try Workplace Assured out now by giving them a call on 1300 575 394. Support for this show comes from Key Person of Influence, a business accelerator program that reeks of success. I asked co-founder Glenn Carlson to share some breakthrough results.
Every day, I'm seeing people posting evidence of the transformation from them being an operator to being a key person of influence. So, as a result of them publishing a book, they're getting invited to speak at global conferences that they've only ever dreamed of attending, let alone being a speaker at. Or, an organisation decides to buy 3,000 of their new product, which they've just created, that they would never have been able to take 3,000 orders if they were just a single operator. Or their pitch, getting them into a deal that is 10 times bigger. And like we see evidence of this every single day. And I look at this every single day to the point where it's become the water I'm swimming in.
KPI, where the results speak for themselves. For a free hard copy of their Amazon bestseller, visit keypersonofinfluence.com/Timbo. Okay, my top 3 attention grabbers from that chat with Alec Lynch of Designcrowd. Number 1, make crowdsourcing a part of how you do business. That makes sense. I'll put links in the show notes over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com to a variety of sites that will enable you to try crowdsourcing in areas like photography, voiceovers, copywriting, design, all those different things. And give it a go if you haven't. Just try it out because you'll be amazed. Attention grabber number 2, 3 critical success factors to getting crowdsourcing right. I like how Alec listed these. Number 1, get your brief right. So important. We talk a lot about that inside the Small Business Big Marketing Club. Number 2, don't skimp on the prize money you offer. Hey? Pay peanuts, get monkeys, and also provide useful, constructive feedback to those who respond to your brief. Kind of obvious stuff, right, that we should do anyway, but they're 3 great ways of ensuring your crowdsourcing experience is a good one. And attention grabber number 3, be your own coach and actively look for the positives. I like this one, bit of PD, a bit of personal development. I loved how Alec made a point at the end of each day to reflect on 6 things he did well and 6 things he could improve on tomorrow. I'm going to try that out. Hey, what grabbed your attention? Love to know. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/345 and leave a comment.
Have you got to lose?
It is time for me to share one simple yet effective marketing idea that you can implement right now. An idea that's not going to cost you a lot of dough and might just generate you more awareness, more inquiry, and ultimately more sales. Today's idea is to send out, often, handwritten thank you letters. Yeah. We live in a pretty virtual world, right? Where the most common forms of communication seem to be email, Facebook messages, or a quick text. Not the most personal way of showing you care, and often sent in such a hurry that the autocorrect function can leave the sender a little red-faced. Unfortunately, Timbo often autocorrects to tomboy, which is very annoying. Now, I don't know about you, but my letterbox, that thing out the front of your house or business, is pretty empty these days. Well, not completely empty. I still get a small tree's worth of direct mail catalogues each week, but few very thoughtful handwritten letters. In business and in life, saying the words thank you can be extremely powerful. In fact, one of the best ways you can boost customer loyalty and cement new customers is by expressing your appreciation and gratitude to those who choose to buy from you. So, if you really want to impress and surprise your new, your past and your existing customers, send them a handwritten letter or card thanking them for their business. Here's my 3 steps to doing exactly that. Step 1, so you're not always having to create from scratch, compose a few templates you can use when it comes time to write a thank you letter. And be sure to include a few spots where you can personalise things along the way. Step 2, develop a process for sending out these thank you letters. If your business is still small, you can handwrite and send the letters yourself, or have one of your employees help you, or a virtual assistant. If you're growing too fast to do it all yourself, then hire a freelancer to help you, or use a letter writing service like Letterfriend or MailLift. Now, both those services are US only, guys, so I actually think there's a great opportunity for someone to start something like that in Australia. And step 3, buy some cards or letter, stationery, some pens and envelopes, some stamps, and start sending. Set yourself the goal of sending 1 thank you letter per day. And here's the pro tip. Take a listen to a past episode I did. It was episode 236 with Steve Sims, who takes this whole letter writing idea to a whole nother level. It involves borrowing stationery, by the way, from five-star hotels, but boy, oh boy, is it a cracker of an idea. As always, there'll be links in the show notes to the resources I mentioned over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/345. And if you'd like help implementing any of the ideas I share in this segment, go ahead and join the Small Business Big Marketing Club over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, where I will personally support you on your marketing journey by answering all your marketing questions whenever they arise. So, what do you got to lose? Well, that almost wraps up another episode of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, but plenty of marketing gold coming your way in the weeks ahead. Next week, we meet Scott Kilmartin. You're going to love this one. A modern-day Mr. Whippy who successfully used crowdfunding, not crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, to build an amazing ice cream business. A few months ago, I had a chat with Ben Buey, the creator of a hugely popular video on YouTube titled How to Tie a Tie, which has had 29 million views. Here he is talking about the early days of that video.
It was a flop.
I love your honesty.
It was a waste of time. I mean, I remember thinking, I'll never do that again. I spent a lot of time learning how to edit a video. It took me a while to shoot it, not that long though. I wasn't that particular. And it cost a little bit of money at the time. I had to drop $100 on the editing software. And so in the end, I was disappointed for sure.
Fortunately, it wasn't a complete flop for old Benny, but it did take 3 years before he started seeing some serious traffic and views. You can listen to my full interview with him and find out how much money he ended up making, or not, from that video over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, or go ahead, if you haven't already, and subscribe free on iTunes. I'd love you to do that. Hey, I'd also love to hear from you. So email me, tim@timreid, reid.com.au, or hit me up on Twitter at timboreid. Big thanks to Workplace Assured for their support. Remember, no matter what curly question you have around running that beautiful business of yours, the team at Workplace Assured can shed some light on it, saving you a whole lot of unnecessary expense and worry along the way. Try them out today on 1300 575 394. That's Workplace Assured. And be sure to grab a free hard copy of the Key Person of Influence book over at keypersonofinfluence.com/Timbo. But only if you want to become more visible, valued and connected in your industry. And don't read it in bed at night because you just won't sleep. Hey, if you love the show, go ahead and pay it forward by telling another small business owner or three. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.